The U.S. is again barreling toward a self-imposed financial crisis as lawmakers are gridlocked over a spending package to keep the federal government fully operational. The U.S. government is set to shut down next weekend unless Congress manages to strike a last-minute agreement to pass a dozen spending bills before the September 30th funding deadline, an unlikely scenario that has left many Americans anxiously wondering how a potential government shutdown would impact them. During a shutdown, the government can only spend money on essential services, such as those related to law enforcement and public safety. That means hundreds of thousands of federal workers won't receive a timely paycheck, while others will be furloughed, which could inflict severe financial hardships on some American families at a time when many are still struggling with elevated prices due to inflation and impending student loan repayments. A government shutdown occurs when Congress fails to approve new spending for federal agencies, which require congressional authorization each year to expend funds. Congress is yet to pass any of the 12 appropriations bills that need to be signed into law to keep the government running as House Republicans remain divided over top-line spending levels and various policy concessions. The last government shutdown occurred in December 2018, when most government activity came to a halt for 34 days, the longest in the modern era. Agencies that have already received funding approval or operate on a permanent funding basis would continue to operate as usual. For instance, the Postal Service and entitlement programs such as Social Security and Medicare would continue to run during a shutdown because they are funded by permanent appropriations that do not need to be renewed every year. Veterans Affairs benefits, including pensions and disability checks, will also continue as normal under a shutdown. The Internal Revenue Service (IRS) will also continue normal operations during a government shutdown, meaning the agency's 83,000 workers would not be furloughed due to funding approved through Congress last year. Taxpayers remain obligated to fulfill their tax obligations, and services like tax return processing carry on unaffected. U.S. government shutdown would also delay release of key economic data. The publication of major U.S. economic data, including employment and inflation reports of critical importance to policymakers and investors, will be suspended indefinitely should the federal government shut down at the end of this week because of lack of funding, as confirmed by the government official. The suspension of the reports would occur across all government agencies such as the Labor Department's Bureau of Labor Statistics and the Commerce Department's Census Bureau and Bureau of Economic Analysis, and leave policymakers at the Federal Reserve, investors, businesses, and ordinary Americans in the dark as they make key decisions. Congress so far has failed to pass any spending bills to fund federal agency programs in the fiscal year starting on October 1 amid a feud within the Republican Party. Leaders in the Republican-controlled U.S. House of Representatives were due to try to advance steep spending cuts this week that stand no chance of becoming law, bolstering the prospect of a shutdown on Sunday. The approach is a change from the last government shutdown between December 2018 and January 2019, which did not affect the Labor Department and allowed the BLS and its Employment and Training Administration to continue publishing data. That means the unemployment insurance weekly claims data will also not be published during any shutdown this time. A data blackout would come at a critical juncture for Fed officials, who opted not to raise interest rates but remain on guard to take more action if necessary to further rein in inflation. As a self-funding agency, the Fed would continue to release data, policy statements, and other reports. The U.S. Central Bank is due to release the minutes from its September 19 to 20 policy meeting on October 11.